The craziest comeback story ever in combat sports. How Jeremy Stephens got arrested on the day of his fight, got cut twice by the UFC, and makes his second comeback to the UFC at the age of 38 years old. All of it in this video. Hello and welcome to Bloodsport MMA.
Yo, assalamu alaikum, my niggas. What's good?
So Jeremy Stephens, aka Jeremy Stiffies,
I think Jeremy Stephens
made his UFC debut in 2007 at the age of 21 years old. Fun fact, the debut was actually on his 21st birthday that he fought in the UFC. Fought against Dean Thomas, lost that fight by submission. Dean Thomas is a freaking beast, and that tells you how long ago that was that Dean Thomas was still actively fighting, which tells you how insane it is, how long the journey of Jeremy Stephens is, right? And he then got cut immediately by the UFC, won a fight again on the regional scene, and then got signed again, but more to that later. So he entered the UFC at 12-1, a great record, right? He exited the UFC in 2021 at 28-19. So you see, and as I said, I'll get to it in a second, there was a lots of ups and also lots of downs in the meantime, right? His current record stays at 29 wins and 21 losses. So let's go through his whole fight journey, all the ins and outs and the jail story right now. So as I said, he fought Dean Thomas, lost by submission on armbar on the UFC 71 Chuck Liddell versus Rampage Jackson. That was ages ago.
He's in 1897.
Then, as I said, won the fight, came back to the UFC, won his second UFC debut by decision, then went on a 2-fight winning streak, won 2 fights in the UFC, lost, won again against Rafael dos Anjos. Please pay close attention to the names I'm telling you in the fight record of Jeremy Stephens. It's insane, the guys that he's fought. He deserves so much respect. So he knocks out Rafael dos Anjos, loses to Joe Lauzon. A real UFC fan know who Joe Lauzon is. Then loses to Gleison Tibau, another legend. Wins again, 2-fight win streak. Loses again to Melvin Guillard. Then goes on a 2-fight winning skid again, loses again to Anthony Pettis, loses to Donald Cerrone, and then the last to Donald Cerrone was in May 15th of 2012. In October 5th actually, 2012, was the date he was supposed to fight at UFC on FX. He got arrested in the city, Des Moines, however you pronounce that, in the exact city that he's now making his comeback fight in the UFC. We'll get to that in a second. In that exact city, he got arrested on the day of the fight for felony assault and burglary, served 15 days in jail, then got released and fought 2 months later, December 8th, 2012, lost against Yves Edwards by KO. So he fought less than 2 months after he got arrested, which is just insane. Then comes back, has a 3-fight win streak again against names like Darren Elkins. Then goes on a 2-fight losing skid again. Who does he lose to? Cub Swanson and Charles do Bronx Oliveira. I mean, it's insane, the guys he's fought. Then wins again a fight, loses the fight that he got famous for, right? When he said, when I knock people out, they don't move, and Conor McGregor turned around and said, who the fuck is that guy?
What?
That's the thing that made him famous. I mean, he's still referred to who the fuck is that guy in a lot of ways, even though his nickname is Lil Heathen. That was when he was supposed to fight Max Holloway. He lost that fight, and please pay attention to the name, Max Holloway. He lost that fight by decision, then comes back, beats Renan Barão. I mean, if you know something about old school UFC, you know Barão was a freaking beast. Then goes on a 2-fight losing skid again against Frankie Edgar and Renato Moicano. I mean, bro, tell me one loss that is not like, bro, I can totally see why you lost it, you know what I mean? Then goes on a 3-5 winning skid again. You see the ups and downs like a roller coaster. Beats Gilbert Melendez, a freaking legend. Doo Ho Choi, one of the best newcomers at the time back then, right? He started to end Doo Ho Choi's first career run. Then beats Josh Emmett by KO. I mean, Josh Emmett is still ranked in the top. You know what I mean? Then goes on a crazy losing skid. So he loses to Jose Aldo, Sabit Magomedsharipov, has a no contest against Yair Rodriguez, loses the rematch against Yair Rodriguez, loses to Calvin Kattar, loses to Mateusz Gamrot. I mean, do you realize that all the names I just mentioned are top notch of the UFC and are still, to this day, other than Sabit, top ranked in the UFC? I mean, he lost to the best guys you can fight and then he got cut.
This is not a career, this is an opportunity.
That was a 5 fight losing streak with a no contest in between. Then he got cut from the UFC again in 2021 and everyone thought that's it. He was like, I don't know, 33, 34 at the time, something like that, or 35 even. Everybody thought that's it, that's over. He goes over to the PFL, loses his first PFL fight, like, oh my God, bro, retire. Then comes back, wins a PFL fight by split decision, so his stock still didn't rise too high, but at least he got a win again after like, I think 4 or 5 years without a win, right? In 2022, he got a win again. Then loses his next PFL fight again, so it's 1 and 2 in the PFL as well. PFL cuts him, he's there, nothing really there for him, right? Everyone thinks like, bro, just please retire. Somehow gets into that whole boxing thing. It came at the right time for him. Fights against Jose Aldo in boxing. Remember, he lost to Jose Aldo in the UFC. Fights him to a draw. Everyone is like, damn, Jeremy Stephens can actually box.
Shorty man, he did it boxing. He beat him one time.
He's not bad. Then fights Chris Avila, the boy of Nate Diaz, loses. Everyone is like, come on, man, now it's really time to retire, man. Come on, even though it was a decision loss, like, come on, bro. Then goes to bare knuckle boxing. Everyone's like, okay, he's at BKFC now. He's just gonna give his last brain cells there, get knocked out 1 or 2 times, and then retire for good. Wins against Jimmy Rivera by Dr. Stoppage. Dr. Stoppage! Goes to another bare knuckle FC fight, wins again against Bobby Taylor by decision. People are like, okay, seems to be pretty good at bare knuckle boxing, but still, yeah. I mean, who did he beat? Who are those guys, right? Then gets booked against Eddie Alvarez for UFC Philadelphia. Everyone realizes that he gets booked for that spot at BKFC Philadelphia to be kind of a good name, but to be the cannon food for Eddie Alvarez, right? He just is supposed to be fat to Eddie Alvarez for Eddie to have a great win in front of his home crowd against a name that people know, right? Especially with Conor being so invested in BKFC and being part of it. Conor with the history with Jeremy Stephens, it was great to build that up and stuff, but he was not supposed to win that fight. Goes in there, breaks Eddie Alvarez's jaw, and gets a corner stoppage win against Eddie Alvarez. And BKFC was probably very upset about that, but goes in there, beats the hometown hero, right? And BKFC did not put him under exclusive contract. They did not offer him a long-term contract. It was a 1-fight contract. So he's a free agent again. And he's like, you know what? I want to go back to the UFC. And everyone's like, bro, you're 38 years old.
You're 40 years of age.
You're a bare knuckle boxer now. In your last like 8 MMA fights, you are like 6-2, or probably in the last 10 MMA fights, like 8-2 or something like that. 2-8, sorry. Everyone's like, bro, you're not gonna get back to the UFC. The UFC doesn't like old guys and stuff. Then out of nowhere, first of all, he appears in thousands of podcasts, which I was very happy about for him to see that he's doing well, because he had a lot of mental issues. I think he wanted to kill himself at one stage. I think his mom has, and I don't want to lie here, but I think his mom has a very bad disease because of her drug past and stuff. He told a story, watch the Jackson podcast and Ariel Helwani show. He told a story about how his mom was heavily drug addicted, and he just grew up selling drugs as well and stuff like that. It was a crazy childhood. And out of nowhere, he announces, hey, I got signed again by the UFC. And now he fights Mason Jones, who also just got re-signed, but is a young buck, at UFC on ESPN 67 in Des Moines, whatever this place is called, the place that he got arrested, the place that, as far as I know, he grew up in, and fights again in the UFC. It is a 1-fight contract, which is very weird. Normally the UFC does 3-fight contracts, but I can see the pattern. He's 38. If he loses, the UFC will not be interested in it anymore, and it's because of it's his hometown and stuff like that. But you have to imagine, he's 29 and 21. Who gets signed as 29 and 21 by the UFC again at 38 years old? That's a horrible record. I mean, of course, it's a great record in terms of you won more than you lost, already AGGs, but as a UFC fighter, that's not a good record, 29 and 21, god damn it. So he gets a chance of his lifetime again to return to the UFC. Not many people, nearly no one gets to return to the UFC twice, especially at that age. People don't realize how unique that is and how much praise he deserves for that. If he beats Mason Jones, who, as I said, is also making his UFC comeback after he beat everyone at Cage Warriors again, who is really good. If he beats Mason Jones, you're looking at Jeremy Stephens getting another 3, 4, 5-fight contract with the UFC and being back in the business, back in the mix. Isn't this just insane? After he lost 5 fights in a row in the UFC, he's now back in the UFC with only 1 MMA win since then, since 2021. This is just absolutely bonkers, and I believe this story deserves more attention than it gets. And whatever happens in his next fight, Jeremy Stephens deserves all the credit for believing in himself, for betting on himself, and not giving up despite having all the signs that show you that you should give up, that it is over. This is like a Rocky-like mentality, like, it is not over until I win. I love everything about that, you guys. Write your opinion on that whole story in the comments. Write everything that comes to your head in the comments, you guys. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, would appreciate that a lot. Make sure to check out my merch, bloodshop.net. The link is in the bio. 10, 11 different collections, fire collections. Check them out. Worldwide free shipping to whatever country you live in. Check it out, you guys. Stay bloody, and until the next one, bye-bye. Bloodsport out.